Hello, for everybody participating. My name is Joel Maxson, Associate General Counsel at Florida Realtors. I'm sure most of you have seen me around, but for those who haven't, my main job at Florida Realtors is to manage the legal hotline. So I wanted to introduce today's program, which is going to focus on the technical side of website compliance by just giving just the briefest of legal overviews, because the technical side and the legal side kind of intertwine. And part of the question I always am asked is, how do we get here? For those of you who've looked into the Americans with Disabilities Act, I think everybody understands that for decades, the ADA has applied to physical buildings. And if you want to open an office or something that's to the public, it's just going to be a cost of doing business to make sure that your physical structure is compliant with the ADA. It's no longer a baby law, it's an entrenched law, and everybody kind of understands it. It's sort of in the background. But some clever attorneys a couple of years ago got the idea to apply the principles of the Americans with Disabilities Act to websites. And these lawyers and their firms have targeted for about 5 years. We've been looking at this closely and paying attention. They've targeted big companies and they've brought big cases. Now, almost all of these national or international companies settle and say, yes, we will take steps to make our websites compliant for people with vision and hearing disabilities. But a few have fought, and the couple of cases that have come out so far, and they are just a couple, have been victories on the side of the disability. In other words, the companies have been forced to make some sort of change to make their websites compliant. So as we watch this trend develop, so far on the legal hotline, we haven't heard much from our members, not really much of a peep at all. So it's been more of an academic reminder, hey, this could be an issue, this could be an issue. Now, a recent trend that many of you have probably seen and heard about is that a law firm out of Miami, they also have a tie to Washington, D.C., has basically blanketed the state with demand letters saying your websites are not compliant, and you need to make them accessible. And it's this, by the way, this recent law firm that has blanketed the state doesn't look a lot like the other ones, but that's kind of a side point. If you want to know more about how they're acting and behaving and what they're looking for, and what so far seems to be fairly small demands for settlement, and no lawsuits filed yet, we're happy to talk about it on the legal hotline, but don't get too distracted by this particular firm and their claims, which, by the way, are coming under Fair Housing Act instead of the ADA. I don't know that that matters, because the point they're raising, accessibility of website, is one that we have said and will continue to say is an issue that is a business decision you should get in front of and have a plan. So that's why today I'm very excited and happy to say we've got Promet Source, and from conversations leading up to this meeting, I found them to be very practical and logical and organized. So I'm excited to hear what they have to say on the technical side of when you do get in front of it, what will that look like? So I'm going to send it over to Ashley Burns, and she's going to kick off the conversation from the tech side, and I'm going to blank out and start taking notes for our hotline attorneys.
Thanks so much, Joel. And my name's Ashley Burns. I'm an account manager here at Promet Source. And just a couple of housekeeping items to address very quickly. This webinar is being recorded. A copy of the webinar will be sent out to everyone following the presentation. We'll also share with you a link to the presentation itself. It has a lot of good resources in here. So we will be sharing that with you guys. And we do encourage all of you to take your questions and put them into the chat box. There's a Q&A chat box in the bottom of your screen. So feel free to ask any of your questions that you have throughout the presentation. And we do promise to hold time for questions at the end. So we definitely will get to those. And I know Denise has a lot of great stuff to cover today. So I'll let her take it away from here.
Hello, everybody. Hi, my name is Denise. Just a little bit about myself. I'm a web accessibility specialist with Promet since about April 2019. I am certified professional in accessibility core competencies. I have a certificate from Northwestern in full stack development. I also have a BS in technical management and a BA in political science. I like education. There's my email for you and my LinkedIn if you ever need to get in contact with me. So what are we going to discuss today? Well, we got to figure out what is this web accessibility thing? Why should we make our websites accessible? how people with disabilities use the web, and then we'll go over some common accessibility errors. We'll discuss a little bit of the topic of accessibility overlays, some accessibility tools, the Promet process, and then we'll save some time for questions and answers. So just bear with me one second, I'm sorry. What is accessibility? Web accessibility means that websites, tools, and technologies are designed and developed so that people with disabilities can use them. We'll discuss this later on, but it brings in the concepts of the acronym of POUR and then the WCAG guidelines for accessibility. These guidelines encompass everyone with disabilities that are like auditory, cognitive, neurological, physical, speech, visual. It also is people with temporary disabilities. You break your hand, you can't use your mouse, you can only use your keyboard. People on mobile devices, more people are using sole mobile devices now and not their computers. And then temporary disabilities such as the sun shines on your screen. You know, we all have had that experience where you can't see your phone. So some accessibility tools and guidelines will help with instances like that. So why should we be making these websites accessible? Why do we care? Well, according to figures released by the Census Bureau in 2012, 56.7 million Americans have some type of disability. This can include 19.9 million that have difficulty lifting or grasping, 15.2 million with cognitive, mental, or emotional impairment, 8.1 million with vision impairments, and 7.6 million with hearing impairment. So that is a lot of users, and this doesn't encompass those temporary disabilities that I just mentioned. Also, we have the number of web accessibility lawsuits filed in federal court rose to at least 2,258, and that was in 2018. That's up from 814 in 2017, representing a 177% increase, and this number continues to rise. Obviously, this is a dated stat. I would guess that this is much larger at this point. So now I'm going to go a little bit, just breeze through some of the accessibility laws. I'm not a lawyer, so this is just a general overview. Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973 is legislation that established rights for individuals with disabilities. It requires agencies that receive federal funds to provide individuals with disabilities an equal opportunity to participate in programs and benefits. This applies to all federal agencies and those doing business with or receiving funding from federal agencies. Now we have the Section 508 of the Rehabilitation Act. U.S. Congress amended the Rehabilitation Act in 1998, applies to agencies receiving federal funds when they develop, procure, maintain, or use information technology. It was enacted to eliminate technological barriers, make available new opportunities, and encourage the development of new technologies. And then we have the big law, the American with Disabilities Act. It became effective on January 26, 92. Says it's wrong to discriminate against people because of their disability, addresses employment and workplace discrimination, state and local governments, parks, facilities, programs, and businesses and nonprofits. There's 3 parts that define it. You have to have a condition that's a substantial effect on one or more major life areas like communication, protects those who had a disability, and those regarded as having a disability. And specific to Florida, Florida's population jumps 31.4% from 2000 to 2020, likely incidence of disability at 15%. So the amount of disability in the state of Florida is increasing. The ADA is then broken down into titles. Title I addresses workplace discrimination, reasonable accommodations. I can't, stand for a long time, you need to provide me a chair, stuff like that. Titles 2, 3, and 5 applies to state and local governments, programs, policies, and facilities, requires reasonable modification to enable use of services and sites. And then Title 4 is TTD, which is the telephone system for the deaf. We then have a lawsuit that is specific to Florida. Lawyers awarded $100K in the Winn-Dixie case. So bear with me. It's basically stated that they shall adopt and implement a web accessibility policy and ensures that its website conforms with WCAG 2.0. We will go over WCAG. It's specific laws that govern how your website appears. And then they should make a publicly available and direct link on their website for a statement of accessibility. So stating what are they doing to make their website accessible. Then another aspect of accessibility is what's called SEO. It's search engine optimization. How easily can somebody through just like Google find your website? Having an accessible website increases search engine optimization. Accessible designs enhance the user experience. It's better for sighted and unsighted users. Titles help screen readers and searches. A lot of this is very tech heavy, but like good heading structure establishes a content hierarchy. Having captions, if you have videos on your sites, having captions on your video allows them to be indexed so they can be searched versus with things such as Google. So how do people with these disabilities, what do they do? How do they search the internet or use the internet? People who are blind or have very low vision will use a screen reader. There's also something called a braille board, which is what's pictured. Basically what it does is it reads the website and transcribes it into braille. You also have closed captioning. So for someone who can't hear, that they can read a video. Then there is also for someone who has motor issues, voice control. You can control your computer using your voice. This is built in now on most computers along with screen readers. Then there's keyboard control. I have some sort of issue where I can't use a mouse. So I can only use my keyboard to control the screen. And then you have high contrast mode. What that will basically do is turn a screen black and white. It's extremely helpful for individuals with color blindness or also cognitive disabilities. If they find the color distracting, black and white can be another option for them. So what we're going to do here is this is a recording of a screen reader and the site isn't necessarily a good site. So we're going to hear kind of what is the experience that a screen reader user gets when a website is not accessible.
Skip to content, link, and 4 more items, group, link, visited, link, image, Carmel Clay Parks and Recreation, banner, Chrome has new window, search button, collapsed button, navigation, link, login, weather enclosures, button, link, 317.848.7275, INTRAC:711, banner, link, explore, list 3 items, link, engage, link, connect, search text field, search, submit, button, X button, complimentary, link, 317-843-3870, Chrome, previous button, main, link, learn more, next button, link, gain access to all features of the Lodon Community Center, become, link, join an award-winning organization, join our team, link, video play button, here about our ongoing commitment to our community, you are cut, link, 02/19/2020, 02/14/2020, article, link, read more, 1 of 3, selected, tab, 1 of 3, main, link, health plus wellness, article, Chrome has new wind, link, recreation, link, 02/20/2020, link, read more, 1 of 3, selected, tab, 1 of 3, main, previous button, link, parks experiences, list 3 items, link, parks features, link, rent a shelter, link, about the Lodon Community Center, link, amenities, link, become a member, link, hours of operation, link, rates, link, about the water park, link, amenities, link, purchase a day pass, link, hours of operation, link, rates, next button, main, visited, link, image, Carmel Clay Parks and Recreation, footer, Chrome has new window, link, info@carmelclayparks.com, link, sign up.
So as you can see, some things were good. You could tell, like it would say link and it would give you the information. What is that link doing? But then other things such as like a phone number, 3,017-843-3870. I don't know about you, but that's not how I normally would read a telephone number. So you can see some of the information, it wasn't fully given to the user. The screen reader user should have the same experience as as a sighted user. So another aspect of this is PDFs. I don't know if as realtors, if you use a lot of PDFs on your sites, but PDFs also need to be accessible. They will follow the same WCAG guidelines that we're going to discuss. And they need to meet levels A and AA, which we'll get into at a later point. But it is something to keep in mind that is also another issue that we in accessibility have to look at. So now we're going to discuss the acronym of POUR and then the WCAG guidelines. POUR is an acronym for 4 principles that describe functional accessibility. Many of the challenges faced by people with disabilities can be described by using one of these 4 principles. We also use these principles to help break down the WCAG guidelines, which we'll discuss next. So first we have is P, which is for perceivable. Can the user identify content and interface elements by using their senses? For many, this means is the element visually perceivable. For others, it's a matter of sound. Some examples, you have an online application form with input fields. If the field labels are not readable, does the user still have the ability to complete the form? Well, I know what to put in what box. If you have a chart, if the user cannot see the chart, do they understand the information it contains? Do you have information in your system that they can access it in a different way? And then you have a website that contains information that does not meet contrast guidelines. Can the low vision user still view this information? Next, we have O, which is operable. Can the user successfully use controls, buttons, navigation, and other interactive elements? For many, this means being able to find and identify the interface control visually, and then being able to interact with that control. For others, this may be using a keyboard or a voice control device to access that same element. Some examples is a navigation menu that reveals a submenu where it drops down when the user uses a mouse to hover on it. If the menu does not expand when it receives focus, meaning when you click on it or interact with that element in some way, can the user still access that same information? Also, for links on a website can be activated with a mouse click. If that click does not receive keyboard focus, can a keyboard user still access them? U is for understandable. Is the technology consistent in its presentation and format? Is it appropriate for the audience? So some examples is the reading level appropriate. So you would expect like a website for children would have a much lower reading level than, say, a medical journal. So you need to structure the content for your audience. Being realtors, obviously you deal with a wide range of people, so you're going to want to go for a common reading level. If the website contains non-English sections, so say you have Spanish on your website, the code needs to define that is Spanish, so when the screen reader gets to it, it doesn't try to use English pronunciation rules to pronounce Spanish. Is the navigation consistent from page to page? So meaning if you have 5 pages on your website, is it all structured essentially the same way? Does the user have to relearn how to use your website with every single page, or did they figure out the first time and then they know what to do from then on? Last would be robust. This is a little bit more of a technology issue. Does the website meet technology standards, and is it designed to function on all appropriate technologies? Meaning, will your website work on all web browsers? And then also, if you have videos on your website, does the user have the appropriate plugin to make it work? And if not, can they still obtain that same information? So those concepts of POUR are then used for WCAG guidelines. WCAG is Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, and it was developed by the W3C, which is the World Wide Web Consortium, which is an international community where members, organizations, a full-time staff, and the public work together to develop web standards in cooperation with individuals and organizations around the world. The goal of providing a single shared standard for web content accessibility that meets the needs of individuals, organizations, and governments internationally. So what we're going to do, this gets a little complicated in the rules, so I'm not going to spend time going over each individual rule, just kind of give you an overview of it. How this works is they're broken up into those POUR principles that we discussed earlier. And then there's level A, level AA, and level AAA. Level A is kind of like, I'm a C student, I'm getting just the bare minimum done. Level A is, oh, we're doing good, we got to be, we're doing well. And then AAA is, you're amazing, your site's fantastic. In general, we try to aim for AA. AAA gets hard to do for everything, but the general kind of goal is at least AA. So what are some of these rules? So this first one, we have perceivable guidelines. One would be like for 1.1 non-text content, is there alt text on all your images? And we'll discuss what alt text is. For 1.2 video content, which will be non-live, is there a text transcript of all video content? So if the person can't hear, can they read about it instead? 1.3 is adaptable. Tables are set up correctly. That's within code. Is an intuitive reading order. So if somebody's using a keyboard, is it in the right order? They're not like jumping around the screen, or just even visually, is it in the right order? 1.4 is distinguishable text, and images are decorative. If you have an image and there's text in it, is it decorative only? You don't want to be using an image to give content for information. Then we have the operable guidelines. So 2.1 would be keyboard access. Could I get to everything on the page using just my keyboard? I don't touch my mouse. I'm just tabbing through. Can I get to everything? And then also you have 2.3 is for seizures. So if you have animations on your website, they need to not flash more than 3 times per second. And then we also have understandable guidelines. Is it predictable? And like if they click on something, is there a change that's expected? So you don't want to be clicking on something and like the colors change on the site. That would not be an expected change. And then the last one is those robust guidelines. Again, this gets, like I mentioned before, a little bit more technical. It's such things as like, is the code written properly? Does it run on all operating systems? Just like we end a sentence with a period, code needs to be ended a certain way. So are all those things done, that sort of thing. Okay, so what we're going to do now that we kind of know a little bit about how we decide if a site is accessible or not, and we're going to go into some examples of some specific issues. So first, we're going to talk about color contrast. Contrast is a measure of the difference in perceived luminance or brightness between 2 colors. So the brightness difference is expressed as a ratio. 1.1 would be white text on a white background, and 21:1 would be black text on a white background. WCAG requires that visual presentation of text and images have a contrast ratio of 4.5:1. There are some exceptions for large text if it's incidental or a logo type. There is also different guidelines for input fields and that sort of thing. So what does color blindness look like? So our top line is normal vision. You can see the full spectrum of the rainbow. The next would be red, green, weak. So as you can see, like the powder blue becomes purple, the greens become a little murky. You can't really see the red at all. Blue, yellow, you got a little bit more blues and pinks, but I don't really see any greens anymore. And then monochromancy, which is no color whatsoever. So what effect does this have? Like, they're still seeing some color. Why wouldn't they be able to read my font anymore? Well, we have an example. This is an actual email that I received where we have a lovely yellow background and a gray font. I am not colorblind, and I have difficulty reading this. So this is a poor example of design in general. But how we get those ratios that we discussed, we use this tool will be given to you guys at the end. We use a tool where we input the colors. So we have a foreground color of gray. Your foreground would be like your text or anything like that. And then a background color of this mustardy yellow. So our tool says that we have a ratio of 1.24:1, which is a fail. It then will tell us that it's a fail for AA, it's a fail for AAA, it's a fail for large text, and it's a fail for graphical objects, which is text input. The next issue would be like alt tags. So an alt tag is alternative text. It's HTML code used to describe the appearance and function of an image on a page. You want to add alt text on all images unless they're deemed decorative, being if you have an image on your page, what information are you trying to give the user from that image? That's what your alt tag should be. So we're adding alt text on photos is first and foremost principal web accessibility. Visual impaired users using screen readers will be read the alt attribute to better understand an on-page image. Alt tags will be displayed in place of an image if the image file cannot load. So you can still get that information to the user even if the page doesn't load. Alt tags provide better image context description to search engine crawlers, helping them index an image properly, and which thus increases your search engine optimization. Okay, so this is an example of alt tags. So we have an alt tag of Jacobs Park sign. So what do you think Jacobs Park sign is going to look like? Well, this is the picture we have. Now, based on that alt tag, you would think it was just this sign, just the Jacobs Park sign, not the whole playground in the background. So this is the code for it. So the title of the image itself was Jacobs Park sign. So the alt tag was just pulled from that title. Or really it should be something more like Jacobs Park playground, just a little bit more information so that the user knows it's the playground that we're looking at and not really the sign. The main thing to keep in mind with these alt texts is think about what information are you trying to give your user by that image. That is most likely what your alt tag should be. Here's another example from Amazon. It's a little bit more explicit example. We have a bag of Doritos. So the alt tag is Dorito tortilla chips, nacho cheese, 1.75 ounce, large single serving pack of 64. So as you can see, you can fit quite amount in alt tags. So don't feel like you need to make your alt tag Dorito tortilla chips. That's really not all the information. You want all the information in there that that image is giving or that you want your user to know. All right. Next, we're going to discuss label forms. Forms, the labels on the forms. So if you got a form like this, email the park district and message, you would think based on this information that you have and the labels, that's the information you need to give. You're going to email the park district, you're going to give them a message, you're going to hit submit, and that's it. Well, now we find out that there really is more labels, right? You have name, first name, last name, email, phone number. And you have some indication of what is required. Well, if these things aren't set up properly, the screen reader user, first of all, would not know what is required. But then you submit the form and you get an error. Well, the error says errors have been highlighted below. If I am non-visual, how am I going to know what is highlighted? If I am colorblind, I might not know what is highlighted. Additionally, you have the error itself is this field is required. Please enter a value. What is this field? The errors should properly give you a list at the top of all the errors so a screen reader user or a colorblind user can read what the errors are. And then the error below each field would be the name, first name and last name field are required. Please enter a value. Or if you have an email, say I just entered D Erasmus and I didn't put like at, Yahoo or whatever. It should give you that information. What format does the input need to be? Rather than just blanket, please enter a value. So those are some of the common errors that we see. Next, we're going to discuss accessibility overlays. What is an accessibility overlay? Overlays are applications and coding that sit between your website and the assistive technology. The goal is to allow business owners and compliance managers the ability to make their website more accessible without having to change the underlying source code. Sounds great. We don't have to change code. Wonderful. Will this fix all of my accessibility issues? No. Nearly 100 companies that were sued in the first 6 months of 2020 also had an overlay or an accessibility widget enabled on their website. So these overlays are not stopping lawsuits. So why shouldn't we use these? What's the problem? Overlay vendors fix only the easy stuff, leaving big accessibility gaps. They also make the user use their assistive technology. So this is the analogy I always kind of think of. Every day you drive a Ford Focus to work. You're used to your small car. You've been driving it for 20 years. And then suddenly I tell you, oh, I'm sorry, for this bit of road, you have to use a semi. You're only allowed to use that. Well, it would be off-putting to have to use something that you're not used to. So they're forcing the user to use their technology rather than the technology that they have set up to their specifications and their preferences. These overlays also do not conform to WCAG conformance. They are not supported by mobile web users. So more and more people, especially people with disabilities, are using their phones rather than their computer. I mean, I don't know if you're like me. After work, I don't search on my computer. I search on my phone. They also do not protect from lawsuits. We'll send this out with the materials later, but this is an article about from a lawyer about whether or not overlays protect you from an ADA lawsuit. So on the subject of lawsuits, this is a graph with some information about lawsuits during the COVID-19 period. So as we can see, they kind of went down in March and April, but that is also the time period when a lot of us were locked down, right? A lot of the courts were shut down. A lot of work kind of came to a slow. Well, we're all kind of starting to open up again, right? So the lawsuits are continuing to go up and they're getting higher. So what can we do? Is it hopeless? I can't fix my website. What are some things that you can do to help make this situation better? First thing you can do is you can run your site through a manual tool, and we will supply you with some of these free ones. There are pay ones, but one example of a free one is Lighthouse. it is important to keep in mind, these only find about 20 to 30% of errors. If you get 100% on accessibility on Lighthouse, it does not mean your website is accessible. But what it'll do, it'll give you, gives you SEO and stuff like that too, and performance. But it'll give you a list of your general errors and where some of the flaws are on your site. I also recommend a few manual things of like tabbing through your website. So go on your website, put your cursor in the search bar and just hit tab on your keyboard. Can you get to everything on your site? That'd be a manual process, manual process of testing it. This isn't automatic, I apologize, to find some of those errors. So what do? We found a whole bunch of errors on our site. What do we do now? You can check with your suppliers and ask them to give you a compliant site. So if you paid somebody to build your site, see if you can get them to make the corrections for you, and we'll supply with the materials later on an example of some letters that you can send to your suppliers to see if we can kind of get your site a little bit more accessible. Next thing you can do is you can get educated. Here's just an example of some of the presentations we have going on at Promet to help you get educated, but there's certainly other places you can do it, but this is kind of what we offer. But it's good to find out, okay, I have these issues, what can I do about them? Or if you have a developer that you work with or somebody that you work with for your site, encourage them to get educated and to see what changes they can make on the website for you. You find out that this is all just too much for you. You're not comfortable dealing with the tech side, which is fine. You can hire a professional organization that can run both automatic and manual testing on your site. Organizations such as these can also fix an accessibility issue. This is what we do at Promet. I'm in the accessibility department. We run manual and automatic tests on websites, come up with a list of errors, and then we can help people fix those issues. So you're a little bit more advanced. You kind of, you know how to code a little bit, or you're familiar with these tools. What you can also do is use WebAIM and Colorzilla to pick some new colors for your website. So even if you're using like a Wix or something of that nature, you can still change your colors, right? So if you're comfortable, these tools will also be given to you. You can use something like WebAIM, which is that black box, which will tell you what color you have. And then you can take that information and put it into Colorzilla, which will give you, reverse that. You can take the Colorzilla and put it into the WebAIM, and it'll give you the ratio. You can also then click around and change that color and see what effect that has on your ratio, so you could get more accessible colors for your site. You can also use a tool called Wave, which we will also supply for you. What Wave does is it's another automatic tool. It will run your full site, and it'll give you a list of, if you look on the left, it gives you errors, contrast errors, some alerts, and then some other structural elements that get a little code heavy. When you go into it, you can click an error, find out what is the problem. So like an image's alternative text is not present. And then it'll tell you how to fix it. And you can also get to the actual code level to fix it. This is where it's good to point out part of the reason why we can't do just automatic testing like this is that it won't find everything. So like this error specifically, it says image alternative text is not present. Okay. Well, say you did have one. You had a picture of a beautiful house, right? But the alt text was car. Well, this Wave system or Lighthouse or anything of that nature is just going to know, oh, there's alt text. It's there. We're good. Well, the alt text is not giving the same information. So this is why it's important to do manual testing on top of your automatic testing. And then we also have some browser tools for the more advanced. We have Code Sniffer, which is again another tool that runs all of your site. Axe, which is a Chrome extension, it does a similar thing. Accessibility Insights gives you a little bit more detail. These are all kind of more advanced and accessibility tools. Contrast Ratio Checker, which we showed. High Contrast Mode, which is a good basic tool if you know how to put an extension in. It just converts your site to black and white. So you can see some of the problems. Where can a colorblind user have issues? Where can't they see? Magnifying glass, if you raise up your browser like the Zoom or use a magnifying glass, Some users use these magnifying glasses to raise up the font because they can't read small print. So they'll raise it very large. Well, do I lose any information on my site when you do that? Is there things that are hard to get to? So tools like this would help you figure that out. And then there's also on Mac, there's a built-in screen reader voiceover. You can go ahead and experiment with that. If you go on YouTube, there are tutorials on how to use voiceover. Similar for Windows, there's something called NVDA, which is their free screen reader. And also you can go in places like YouTube and get the resources to learn how to use these things. And I will turn it over to Ashley for a little bit about Promet.
Thanks so much, Denise. Appreciate that. So yeah, as Denise mentioned earlier in her presentation, we do have some tools for your disposal, as are there many other companies that can help you address some of these issues. The first being that we build compliant websites. It's always ideal to start building your website ADA compliant versus retrofitting. So meaning when you are building a website, you want to make sure that you're thinking about ADA and your objectives are that's part of the forefront of the design. Next, we do have comprehensive audit workflows, meaning we can take the site as it is now, which if you know that it is not ADA compliant, we can run an audit on your site and identify all the errors that are on your site that need to be fixed and validated to meet ADA requirements. So we developed that. We can also fix those errors for you and make sure and bring it up to ADA compliance, or we can just simply hand over the audit and allow you to make those changes yourself. We then go ahead and recertify the site to validate that those changes have been made. And so these are kind of some of the packages that we put together for you guys as options. The first being sort of a DIY option for you. You'll notice here that we start every option with a statement of accessibility in a grievance method, meaning you make a statement on your homepage allowing all the users that are using your website to let them know that you've started the process, it's underway, you're making the changes to allow your website to be more ADA compliant, and you give them a method of communication while that's happening and being worked through, a way to contact you as an alternative method. The second being some education. I know Denise shared with you some upcoming training classes that we have. The link to those training classes is also right here. And when we send out the presentation to you all, we can include a promo code so that you guys can get a discount off of that August 26th training course. So we'll share more information with you at the end. The second option would be to have us go through and manually audit your website. We can start with your homepage there just to identify all the compliance violations, and that's a report that we'll hand off to you, and we'll include code level remediation fixes to make sure that those errors are fixed on your website. And again, we'll go ahead and certify and retest that to make sure that all those fixes have been applied. And the third option that we have is an audit and remediation package, meaning we'll not only go through and identify all of those errors, but we'll actually perform the fixes for you as well. So if any of these packages are interesting to you or something that you want to inquire and get further information about, we encourage you to reach out following this presentation. And those are just an example of some of our representative accessibility clients. And now I know that you guys have had some questions for Denise that came through while she was presenting, so I can go ahead and just read those for you now.
Yeah, can you read them to me? Because I can't get the Q&A box to open.
Yeah, absolutely. So what are your thoughts on UserWay? They have a free and paid version. The newest version allows a bot to scrape your website for errors and things that need to be fixed. Would you say this is an adequate platform without spending hundreds or thousands of dollars per month or quarter?
What it's going to do, I mean, it's a great start, certainly, right? Anything that's looking at your site for you to find your errors. But like I mentioned, this is only going to find about 20 to 30% of your errors. It's not like my example of the alt text. It would know you have alt text on your pictures, but is it, the rule is concise and informative. Is it concise and informative? It's not going to find all of your errors. It's not going to know, can I tab through everything in my web page? It's not going to know, our example of the screen reader, where it read the phone number as a long series of numbers rather than like an actual phone number. It wouldn't find that. So there's lots of things that it's not going to find, but it's certainly a very good place to start. I recommend an automatic tool just to kind of give yourself an idea of this is where I'm at. Another great example is Site Improve. That is a pay service, but Site Improve will do the same thing with scrape your website.
Okay, second question. Do you know if these attorneys that are suing realtors using these same types of tools to evaluate our websites prior to filing a suit?
I'm sorry, wait, run that by me again? I'm sorry.
Do you know if these attorneys that are suing realtors using the same types of tools to evaluate our websites?
That's what they're doing. They're using, from what I understand, they use like a free scraper and they find the easy things. Because they're not finding hard code issues, right? They're finding the easy things that like, you could go on, Site Improve also has a free end. So you can go on the Site Improve free and find, 15 errors on somebody's website. And that is how they're getting the errors from what I understand. They're not hiring, someone like me to go through your website.
Right. The next question, do we have a site who can check the accessibility where we can count on their results?
Like I said, anything automatic is only going to get you a certain amount of thing. If you really want a full, we're going to try to catch everything, you'd have to hire a company like Promet or someone similar that does a mixture of automatic and manual accessibility. You do have certain sites will say that they're accessible. So, and we can prescribe some or send some information on how to question these people as to whether or not it really is accessible. There's certainly people out there that are selling sites that say it's 100% accessible and it's not. So it's good to know what are the questions you need to ask to, ensure that they're giving you something that's what you're paying for.
Right. Does this tool that know how to read your site can be one solution to support ACA?
Like all these tools, and I think the point that I'm kind of driving home is all these tools are a great starter point. So all these things that read your site that, Lighthouse, Site Improve, anything of that nature, Wave, that it's just a starting point. It's not giving you all your errors. It's not fixing everything. It's just finding the basic stuff. And that's the same thing like these overlays are doing. Overlays are just fixing the basic stuff. They're not getting into more complex issues. And that's where you do need a mixture of automatic and manual testing.
How do you handle PDFs? PDFs
are problematic in their nature. You need Adobe Acrobat Pro to be able to audit them. And we do, I don't know if we have it coming up with any of the training, Ashley may know. We do training on how to remediate your PDFs. It is best if you can to get your PDFs just in the website, like having the HTML code. It's just easier. But you can use Adobe Acrobat Pro. They have an accessibility function. So, and it's complicated in that you hit the accessibility thing, it'll tell you what your errors are. Once you fix something, you can't go back. So it's very permanent in nature, which makes it hard to use. And there are services out there that will fix your PDFs for you. Just be cautious to make sure they're actually giving you an accessible product in the end. But the main thing you need to do is Adobe Acrobat Pro in order to be able to fix those. But I encourage you, if you can, get the PDF off, if you can make it a part of your website, to do that.
Thanks, Denise. I was just going to say that we can include additional resources for you guys on PDFs as well. If I embed a YouTube video on my website, am I responsible for the transcript, closed captioning, or is the creator of the video responsible?
Well, it gets into third-party issues, but if you have the video off of YouTube, if they posted it, like if somebody else, like say I had a website that I posted or video I posted on YouTube, and you took it and put it on your site, you couldn't put captions on it. So it becomes a third-party issue. But if you created a video on YouTube and then put it on your own site, you can put the captionings on it. It is extremely easy to put captions on YouTube videos. There's a YouTube video on how to do it. It's really just a matter of going in there and making sure, because YouTube will automatically generate captions for you. they're extremely inaccurate. So all you have to go in is there's a screen where you can edit the captions. So you can then go in there and make sure it actually says what you want it to say. But if it's a video that somebody else did and you put it on your site, you can't make the changes. So it's a third-party issue, but you shouldn't be using things that are not accessible anyhow. It's not an excuse to not be accessible, if that makes sense.
Will the follow-up email to this session include pricing for your services? Further, will your services 100% guarantee that we will be protected from receiving a letter from an attorney as long as no changes or updates are created by us, the user, to the site?
You want to take that, Ashley?
So yes, we will definitely include pricing. If you reach out to myself, I can certainly get you pricing depending upon which services you're looking for. If you are looking to have us audit your site or audit and remediate your site or build you a compliant website, that the pricing may vary based upon the needs. So you can definitely reach out to me directly for a quote on that.
As opposed to the guarantee, what we do in our general process, I don't know how big your guys' websites are, but in our general process, we use RFPs. So we use representative pages. So we don't normally audit, like say I have a big website of 50 pages. I don't audit 50 pages. I audit 10 pages, but I make sure I get some elements of everything. So what our sheet will say is, our letter will say that you can put on your website is that as of this date, we looked at these pages. These ones are accessible. These are the third-party issues of things that we cannot change. So if you change something, if you didn't take the errors over to another page, like say you had a YouTube video in 15 places on your site, and I looked at one of those and said, okay, these are the errors. This is what you need to fix. You fixed it there, but you didn't fix it the other 15 places. Well, you obviously have an issue still. So we guarantee the pages that we look at become accessible, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and we can go over that in further detail.
Yeah.
If you're interested in one of those options.
And I think most of your sites are pretty small, so it might not be as big of an issue, but usually that's just how we do it.
What about alt text? Is that purely decorative?
No.
Don't the free web scrapers show that as an error when it is not? How do we protect ourselves from this type of complaint?
So alt text is not purely decorative. Alt text is what the screen reader reads, or if, say, your photo doesn't load, it'll put that in there. Now, you can have decorative images. So, I don't know, you have a picture of palm trees. It's not giving any information to the user whatsoever, but it's there to look pretty. Well, you can have a decorative alt tag. So it's an empty alt tag. So it's like alt with quotes. What'll happen then is the screen reader will skip over that image and it's like it's not even there. So the scrapers will find that as I mentioned before, the scrapers will find that there is an alt tag. It will not know if that alt tag is adequate. It'll say, the example I used before, you get a picture of a house and the alt tag could be, rooster. Well, there's an alt tag, the scraper found it, but it's not a valid alt tag.
Okay. Is it good to, this is another question about UserWay. Is it good to use a plugin like UserWay?
I'm not familiar with UserWay's plugin. I've never used it. But in general, like I said before, any scraper is like, 20 to 30%. I still encourage you to do little things like tabbing through your website. If you, use VO or NVDA, just get the basics on how to use it. Use a screen reader on your site. See what the experience is. Those are the types of things that those scrapers are not going to find.
Right. I think the quote was in the beginning that 100 companies that were sued in the first 6 months of 2020 also had an overlay or an accessibility on their site. So
are they an overlay or are they a scraper? UserWay.
I thought it was a widget.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So then it's not going to, they only fix the easy stuff, right? And they make you, as I said before, with the widgets, they make you use their tools, and people are still getting sued for them. So there's no guarantee in that.
Right. So a site with only 4 to 10 pages would be guaranteed. Now, I think that's in reference to our services.
It depends on what they'd have to talk to you about it. I'm assuming that's what they mean.
Yeah. Yeah.
If we looked at everything,
right.
If that's how it was structured at that point in time, barring any third-party issues, then yes. But so if there's things that you can't change, like I said, what we do is we list the pages that we had, what error, and then any errors that we couldn't fix. So to say it's 100% accessible, there may still be caveats to that. There's things that were third-party issues that we couldn't fix. Like we do with a lot of municipalities, right? And so they often have their websites linked to other places. So it'll say, you know, click here to register, and it brings it up in another program. Well, we're not auditing that other program. We don't audit third parties. So there be that. Or we don't also, as Promet, we don't do PDFs. So if you have PDFs on your site, we would list those as an exception that we did not look at those. So those would have to become, you'd have to hire somebody to do it or do it yourself to make those accessible. So yes and no. Answer that question.
Well, that's kind of a good segue. You sort of answered that here. The free IDX sites included with our MLS are not WCAG compliant. Who would receive the attorney letter in the instance that the site was targeted, MLS or the agent?
I'm not an expert on that particular area. I would think the agent would, though. I don't know. Maybe your lawyers can answer that, but I would think the agent would.
All right.
I'm just a developer. I don't know.
In general, do you have any recommendations for blogging? For example, make it plain, white background, font in black, size 12, in order to make it accessible?
Certainly. All those things are great. I also would say use a sans serif font, so something without the little feet. It's easier to read. Other like little trick, I obviously wear glasses. I have horrible vision if I don't have my glasses on, so I take my glasses off. Can I still read it? Show it to other people. Can they read all of it? But definitely black and white is the easiest way to go. Something clean, a little bit of a larger font. I might even go with like a 14 if the size doesn't bother you, just to make it easier to read. But yeah, anything simple is always best when it comes to accessibility. Not that you can't make something cool with accessibility.
Great. And lastly, have you been successful in correcting issues in GoDaddy web builder that is not WordPress?
I haven't had to do anything with GoDaddy. A lot of our clients don't use that sort of thing. We're mainly WordPress or Drupal. Things where like, you know, like your Wix and these plug and chug type websites can be problematic because, especially like Wix, I know, they don't allow you to all the code. So you can still change things like your colors and your alt text on your pictures and these basic things that we've talked about. You can still change those things. But a lot of times, like with Wix, you can't get to the code level, so I can't change certain things. And last I checked, this is probably about 6 months ago, Wix was working on it. And so I'm sure other people are going to file suit like Weebly or whatever to try to make it so that you can access your code. But at this point, those sites are extremely difficult to make accessible. And the recommendation usually is to like go with a WordPress or a Drupal or something of that nature if you can.
Great. All right. Well, oh, looks like we have a couple more that just came in. How is Divi? And I believe Divi is an accessible WordPress theme.
Oh, is it? Okay, yeah. I mean, oh, I'm sorry. I hit the wrong thing here. It's all in your use of it too. So the site would be accessible and there's, especially like with Drupal, I know that they say certain things are accessible and they get brought over funny. So there still may be some things you got to like putz around with, and it's still recommended that you run a tool on them and do some manual testing to guarantee. Because a lot of times these themes, they say they're 100% accessible and they're really not. But then there's also certain things like if you change a color or, you know, make some customizations on that site, are you ruining the accessibility? Are you taking some of that away? So the testing process is still important, even if you're buying a fully accessible theme.
Okay, and we did have one more come in too. Is 2.0 still good or now obsolete with 2.1?
It's not obsolete. The recommendation is still 2.1. Coming down the road, I don't know if this is going to be 5 years from now or next week, they're going to change the guidelines again. They're restructuring them. The guidelines, I think, will still be the same, but they'll be structured a little different. So the ultimate goal would be 2.1 AAA. But if you could start with 2.0 and then there's some changes at 2.1, you can do it that way. But ideally, yes, 2.1 would be the way to go. Us personally, when we audit at Promet, we audit to 2.1.
Great. Well, thank you, everyone. And it looks like that concludes our Q&A questions. Thank you so much, Denise. And thank you, everyone, for joining us. Feel free to reach out to myself or Denise with any questions. My email address is aburns@prometsource.com. And as I mentioned previously, we will be sharing a recording of the webinar as well as the presentation, which contains all the resources. Thanks so much. Have a great day.